Is it love bombing or codependent affection flooding? Well, love bombing gets a lot of attention and is usually discussed alongside narcissism or when we discuss trauma bonding. But what I've seen more often in my over 35, almost 40 years of experience is something that I have coined attention flooding, which can look like love bombing, but its origins are actually from codependency and feelings of low self-worth. Today, I'm teaching you the difference between love bombing and attention flooding, the signs to look for, and as always, my top 3 tips for building healthier and more fulfilling relationships based on mutual respect and genuine affection. So stay tuned. Welcome back to season 6. I cannot believe I'm starting season 6. It's blowing my mind a little bit. Thank you for all of you who've been following me for all these years. And wow, this is going to be the 251st episode of the Relationships Made Easy podcast. Wow. And yeah, a heartfelt thank you. I'm really excited to be back. I had a lovely break, which is always good for rejuvenating. And I'm taking a month-long break from my love letter, the weekly love letter that goes out, which if you haven't signed up yet, you really want to. It's on the website. It's just a weekly dose of inspiration. I'm not selling you anything. It's just a weekly dose of inspiration, my little stories. And people love the love letter, I got to tell you. So if you're not signed up yet, it's a great way to stay connected, but also to get a little weekly dose of inspiration and something to help you think differently for the week. That's always my goal with it. When I do have new products that come out, I do give a coupon. If you're in the love letter, you will get a coupon for those things, but I'm not going to send you, 40 emails in a week with my big sell for the thing. I don't do that. Anyone who's been on the love letter a long time knows. It truly is from love. So I know it's hard to believe these days that people aren't just trying to sell you stuff all the time, but I am happy if you spend money. You can buy a mug on my website to support me. You could buy my books, you could programs. There's things to do that help support me in that way, but you don't have to. And that was always the intention of the podcast, was that you could have zero money and have access to great research-based, experience-based information that would change your life. And that's what I've been doing for 250 now one episodes. So let's talk about it. And I came up, I was like, wow, the opener, season 6, I've got to come up with some new, and I've been using these sort of terms with my clients, and I realized that, this is sort of me coining new terms. Hey, I am a thought leader in the field. That's my jam. And my clients have been, really responding well to having a new frame of reference for their actions. So I'm giving it to you today, and you don't even have to pay me my hourly fee. How do you like that? So back in episode 234, I taught you all about the 7 stages of trauma bonding. And if you haven't, if you're interested in that, go back and check it out. I'll always link to it in the show notes, as I always do. You can go to abbymedcalf.com, and on the podcast page, you will find every podcast I've ever done back to episode 1. If you can't get them on the platforms you usually listen to, I know they only hold so many usually. And you can also, there's always a corresponding blog post under relationship tips and tools to every single episode I do, so that if you are listening in your car and want to, take notes, so to speak, but you can't because you're driving or doing something else, you can always go to the website and get the full, it's not a transcript, it's actually a blog post, so it's written really well. It's not like some transcript you have to read through to try to figure out. It's really a succinct message of whatever I'm talking about, and you can go there and take notes, copy and paste, do whatever you want. So you have, you don't maybe have to listen to the entire episode again, although why wouldn't you want to? And you can just get the notes. Or if you have someone in your life who you love, who doesn't like to listen, but maybe would read, and you want them to get the information, it's another great way to do it. Because I love you. That's right. That's why I do all that. So you can go back and listen or read about the 7 stages of trauma bonding. And stage 1 of that is love bombing. And it's an area that definitely gets a lot of attention. I see it often used, or, if I'm scrolling through TikTok or something, I see it. And love bombing, briefly, is when it's that, it's usually right away you have this deep, intense connection with someone that you feel. And, everything from those hours long conversations all night to the sex is so amazing. And this is when one or both people are just completely focused on winning the affection, the attention, the love of the other person. And we often see some grand displays, maybe extravagant dates or gifts or things like that. But a lot of times love bombing is attached to narcissists or trauma. There's sort of a sinister character to the way it's described. As in, a narcissist will initially love bomb to get you, but will then start gaslighting and trying to control you right after they feel like they got you. And so again, there's kind of a, like a sinister, I can't think of a better word, kind of feeling when we talk about love bombing. But in my, again, almost 40 years, it's hard to say that out loud because I'm getting older. It's been almost 39 years that I've been doing this. Yeah, 39, almost 39. It's crazy. But in those years of experience, I've definitely seen love bombing, obviously. But there's something else I see more commonly, and it's when someone is looking for validation from someone else. So they do all the things that look like love bombing, but it's from a lack of self-worth and codependency. It's really coming from a place of not feeling worthy of someone else's love unless you're doing for them. And so the thing that I've coined is that I see this sort of behavior on a spectrum. Okay, so like on a continuum, from what I call affection flooding, which is more like love bombing, to love drizzles. So I call the whole thing, are you ready? Validation precipitation. I use the water theme all the way through. So on this kind of low-key end, you've got your emotional drizzles, and on the big tidal wave end, you've got your affection flooding, right? So, because I love a catchy phrase. I love a catchy phrase you can remember. So there you go. And I really find that it's such a better descriptor of what is happening for most people. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about affection flooding. So affection flooding suggests that the codependent person is sort of engulfing their partner with really an avalanche of affection and attention. Okay. Avalanche. Oh, that's there's frozen water. Oh, I'm gonna keep I'm running with this. I'm running with this, people. All right. I'm running with the metaphor. Calm down, Abby. I know it's the new season, but maybe I won't go too deep on this. Okay. So, but there is avalanche is a good word. This avalanche of affection and attention, but it's driven by their deep-seated need for validation and some kind of external affirmation. And this can include, again, those grand gestures, extravagant gifts, vacation, saying I love you with a skywriting plane, whatever, right? While maybe treating, you're treating for great dinners, you're planning amazing dates, you get it, right? There's just this like kind of huge sort of overwhelm, coming at you. There's still an intense and overwhelming experience, right? So that can feel just like love bombing, but the root cause of my New York came out. The root cause of the behavior is codependency. I could do the whole thing in like a really strong New York accent. Wouldn't that be kind of fun? All right. We're not going there today. Look, I'm so spunky today. I'm so spicy today. I've got so much energy because I'm so excited about the new season. All right. So the person, I'm staying on track. I got it. The person is seeking excessive reassurance from their partner, really, again, flooding them, inundating them with affection and attention, but it's to fill the void. It's to fill a void of low self-worth, and an over-reliance, again, on some sort of external sources of validation. And these actions, they're they're really driven by a deep-seated need for validation rather than, with narcissism, some grandiose sense of self-importance, right? That's what we see in narcissistic love bombing. So I want to make sure you're really seeing the difference of what I'm talking about. And then, of course, since affection flooding is hard to do all the time, or it's not, you can't really, especially as you get into a relationship, what I see then is the codependent person will often rely on what I call the love drizzle. Okay, so it's just always there, this validation precipitation, sometimes in a drizzle and sometimes in a flood. And the love drizzles are, wanting those doses of connection throughout the day. And what I see is that this person will constantly think of things they can do for their partner. And I often see, especially with the advent of, texting in the last 20 years, sending, these love-filled texts and hoping for a love-filled one back. Okay. The problem with affection flooding or the love drizzles, depending on, how extreme you are on that scale, on that continuum, is that the feeling you get is, of course, short-lived. You're always needing to fill that void, that hole. So unless the other person is codependent in the same way you are, that initial in-love infatuation feeling wears off, which is normal, by the way. Anybody, that would happen with anyone. But you're left feeling abandoned, rejected, I can say the word, and even more inadequate than before, I think, a lot of the times. So, if you text your partner, just thinking of you and how lucky I am to have you in my life, I love you so much, followed by every emoji, but they're busy at work. And so they only, I'm doing only in text if you're not watching me on YouTube, they only text back, love you too, with an exclamation, but there's one emoji or there's no emojis. And you end up feeling deflated and worried. That's a problem. And some of you are nodding your head right now. I see you. I can see you right through your radio or the screen or your phone or wherever you're listening. I see you. And you're going, oh crap, I do that. Yeah. And to break free, this is a cycle, right? To break free from this cycle, you need to work on your codependency. You need to work on building your self-esteem, establishing healthier relationship boundaries, right? Recognizing your worth as an individual, independent of external validation. It's crucial to do this if you want to form healthy connections, not just with your partner, but with everybody. And yeah, I know. So let's talk about signs you might be on the validation precipitation spectrum. Look at me. I'm just creating all new psychological terms. How do you like it? Why not? Who gets to create them? Why can't I create them? Yeah. Okay. Here are some signs. So, because, recognizing if you're engaging in affection flooding or love drizzling, right? Driven by codependency and low self-esteem, it really requires honest self-reflection. So, let's talk about signs you need to look for. The number, and these aren't in any particular order, but let's talk about them. So one is that you have a constant need for affirmation. You find yourself persistently seeking validation and approval from your partner, and you feel anxious, inadequate, worried when you don't receive it. I think that's probably the top one. Another one or two is you have a fear of them breaking up with you or abandoning you. You have this intense fear of being abandoned or rejected by your partner to the point of being sort of overly accommodating or even compromising your values. You're seeking validation to avoid these feelings of unworthiness. You feel me, right? You feel wrong. Okay. 3 is one of my favorites and something I've experienced quite a bit. I call it the in trouble feeling easily. And the in trouble, right now some people are really nodding. I see you're nodding. You're like, I get the in trouble feeling. The in trouble feeling is like kind of in the pit of your stomach. You feel your stomach drop a little bit. You suddenly are, feel kind of a thrumming in your system, or like tingling down your arms kind of thing. You get that in trouble feeling kind of easily. If things aren't going along exactly as you'd like, you get an uneasy feeling again in your tummy that something is off. It's hard to stay focused on anything else. Okay. But it doesn't take much to set that off. And that's an issue. So example, if your person didn't text you right back, and I'm using the word partner all the time here, but you can have affection flooding with a family member or friends. I see people do it with friends. Anybody, anything, right? Could be at work. Affection flooding at work would look like just overworking, right? Doing too much, always going to your boss, looking for approval, right? And again, so you walk into work and your boss doesn't look up from their desk, if you're not remote working, and you immediately go, oh my God, I'm in trouble. They're not looking at me because they're going to fire me later. They were just working, or they're having their own moment, or they had a stomach ache. We don't even know, right? It's got nothing to do with you. But we go there. Or your partner doesn't text you back right away, or text you back, like I mentioned earlier, with just, yeah, love you too, with nothing else. You immediately get that sinking feeling and in trouble and something's wrong. Yeah. Okay. Number fourth sign I see is there's just an intensity all the time in how you feel about this person. Maybe you use intense language to express your affection or admiration. And there, it's just, when it's always intense, when it's always like, oh, there's something going on. And what I find is that when people are using that, again, after the first, month, after the first 2 months, you're a year into the relationship and you're still talking like this, or 8 months in, or 9 months, it's often problematic. And the real problem is that this sort of feeling, this extreme kind of emotion about the person, often leads to having an atmosphere of where you idealize your partner and you're putting them on a pedestal and you're only seeing the good, and that obviously becomes a real problem later. The fifth sign I would talk about, again, these are in no particular order, is that there's a feeling of, there's like a rapid escalation, I think is the best way I could describe that, in probably all your relationships, but certainly with a partner, if this is going on. You're hearing a lot from others, maybe that you're moving too fast, or you notice yourself moving from, dating to I love you, to moving in, to engagement, to marriage, very rapidly. If you're seeing this very kind of rapid escalation, it's just often, again, it's like the validation you're looking for, really. And you're doing that by, like, if they say they love me back, and if they want to move in, and if we, you're sort of locking something in out of fear. And I'm not saying that if you've ever moved fast in a relationship that means this is what you're doing, that it's unhealthy, because I think that there, are certainly healthy times to move fast in a relationship. I'm just saying, if you're noticing a lot of the other things and that you might put some things together. As with anything I talk about, nothing is ever all black and white. Nothing is ever, if you have 1 out of 10 things that you're like, oh, I'm that thing. It's like, no. I'm giving you a broad spectrum, and I'm trusting you to see where you might fit on this or not, or don't fit on this. But my guess is, if you're listening, you think you fit on this in some way. All right. Number 6, and that would be related to this, is something I already mentioned, that you're expecting that very quick turnaround all the time, in answering texts and answering calls and answering emails and in setting up the next date. And, you're just expecting a lot of, oh, my eyes itch, a lot of fast turnaround. What's 7? I'm going to say this. If you're often losing yourself in a love relationship or even a friendship, you want a lot of attention from your partner. You give a lot of attention to your partner, often to the exclusion of other things. Maybe you stop doing things you used to do, you used to even enjoy doing, to spend more time with them, or you've just lost interest. you expect them maybe to do the same, not see their friends as much or do things that they used to do. Their place in your life isn't balanced, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That your life gets now again, in the very beginning of a relationship, when we're just, all in love for a few moments, that obviously happens very naturally, where, you're at work and you're texting and you're not focused and you're, not hanging out with your other friends as much. But after a couple, 3 months, that should start to rebalance. You should, start to have days apart and nights apart and go do other things. And, that should start to really happen. And where you're not obsessed with them, and I'll say, it's not like you force yourself to go out with friends because your partner was going out with their friends, on separate kind of girl nights or gal nights or whatever, but that you aren't with your friends obsessing about them the whole time and texting and checking in and wondering, yeah, there's a balance. If there's no balance, it's often a problem. The 8th sign I see a lot is you are always looking for special things for your partner. This might be, again, gifts, vacation, or it could just be, I buy cards for them all the time just because, or you're always in the card store looking, and you've collected like 10 cards to give them over the course of time. You're always on the lookout for ways to show them that you're thinking of them, or ways to make their life easier. And again, you might be saying, like, of course, I think of Gary. I try to think of how his life could be easier. And I occasionally buy a card, but I don't go to the store, or let me go find a card they might like, or I'm not always browsing the cards for a card for Gary. But occasionally, if I'm looking for, let's say, a birthday card for a friend, and I'm like, oh, that card's so cute, it's so me and Gary, and I'll buy it, just to get it out of nowhere. But and of course when I'm with him, but when I'm at work, I'm not thinking of ways to make his life easier. Like right now doing the podcast, I'm not thinking of that stuff. It's not in my head all the time. I try to keep him, top of mind in a lot of ways, but I actually need to make that effort because I have so many things in my life, the kids, my work, my friends, activities. There's so many wonderful things going on that he's, one of obviously the most important, but he's not always the most important because that's just not how life works. Sometimes my job is more important. Sometimes the kids are more important. Sometimes, a call from a friend who really needs me is more important. Like there needs to be balance, right? So, I do want you to, of course, to think of your partner and hold them in high regard, but I think you can know the difference. There's an anxiety attached to the other one, or this kind of fluttering all the time that, again, a year in, 5 years in, 2 years in, 8 months in, I don't know that it's healthy to be having all the time. So just notice, that's all. Just notice. Don't judge yourself. I'm not here to judge you. So if you're judging yourself or think I'm judging you, you're not listening well. Okay? I say with love, but you're not listening well. So just think about it. All right. Number 9, and this is a biggie, is that you don't ask for what you need often or at all. Or maybe you even neglect your own needs while you're prioritizing your partner's happiness and their goals. You might find it very challenging to communicate your needs or, what you want, because you don't want to disappoint them. You are afraid they're going to reject you or not find it important. Also, you might not even realize you have needs. That happens a lot for people. They think, no, this is my need, that I'm taking care of the people around me. That's not a need. That's something else. If you don't have your own needs that are balanced with that are just as much as what you give to others, then again, we're out of balance and we're not doing it the way I'm talking about. Got an itch. Sorry, I'm itching. I'm scratching. Or is it scratching? You have an itch and you scratch, right? Is that how that works? I think I use both as a verb. I'm having some water too. Excuse me. Okay. Sorry. Hey, comment under the video if you're watching this on YouTube. Is itch and scratch both a verb? I don't know. Okay. Nouns, verbs. What is that? All right. Number 10 is the thing I see this a lot is this extreme sensitivity to rejection. I mean extreme. Like we all nobody likes to be rejected. So I mean an extreme sensitivity to it, feeling devastated or crushed really by minor things, minor rejections or criticism from your partner or from anybody, and taking them as a personal attack on your self-worth, these are, right? That's an issue. So those are like the 10 signs. There you go. 10 signs. I want to say this, of course, needing occasional validation and needing affection, of course, that's normal in a healthy relationship. I got no issue with that. But when these signs become persistent and start affecting your emotional well-being or the balance in the relationship or the balance in your life, that's when it's time to reflect on whether codependency and low self-esteem are influencing your behavior. Okay? I always want to give you the big picture of what I'm talking about, because oftentimes we can get into the minutia and it can seem like what people are telling us, like, or what I'm saying to you right now, is contradictory to other things I've said. That so it can seem like it's contradictory, right? To not think of your partner, but then I tell you other times you need to think of your partner. If you're listening well, and I want you to be, then you don't hear that as a contradiction. You see that one is from love and one is from fear. That there are actions that come from a loving heart, that are from openness and curiosity and willingness and just, that beautiful unconditional love. And there are actions that come from fear and worry and anxiety and jealousy and fear of rejection or abandonment, right? There's sensitivity over, to just even the littlest criticism or something. That is how I want you to always see what I'm talking about on the spectrum of love to fear. How does it feel in your body? Where is it coming from? And that's why it's so important to get clear on that. So let's talk about some reasons you might be on the validation precipitation spectrum. Do you love it? We're on the spectrum. It's a new spectrum. On the continuum. All right, so low self-esteem and seeking validations from others, it really can arise from a lot of different factors, right? All kinds of places. But I'm just going to quickly go over, before we get to tips, 5 common reasons why some people may have low self-esteem and look to others for validation. Okay, I'm going to do these briefly, but I just wanted to, me, I'm always giving a lot of context for things so you can put together the pieces well when you're thinking about it, when you're wondering, does this match me? Is this me? So obviously, number 1 would be childhood experiences, right? Early experiences, during your childhood can obviously significantly impact your self-esteem. Let's be real. Negative or critical parenting, emotional neglect, abuse, lack of any positive reinforcement can can clearly lead to feelings of inadequacy, a constant need for external validation, right? To feel worthy. You can see how that works. Okay. Related to this, but a little different, is some past trauma or abuse. If you've experienced trauma or abuse, so physical, emotional, sexual abuse, any of those, you can, and neglect is really abuse too. So what I said in number 1 should really be here in number 2. You can get internalized feelings of shame and unworthiness. So seeking validations from others becomes a coping mechanism to either numb or escape from the pain that's caused by the trauma. All right. Number 3, and by the way, I've done, of course, episodes on you might be dealing with unhealed trauma and not realize it. I'll link to all the previous episodes on the show notes page. The ones I've done on early childhood trauma, all those things will all be linked. Or you can always do a search on whatever platform you're listening on or on my website with a keyword like trauma. And all of the podcast episodes and blogs will come up related to that. So you can go have yourself a little time going down the rabbit hole. YouTube also, you can do the same thing, Abby Medcalf trauma or something, and all my videos on that will come up. So, and if you're watching on YouTube right now, please subscribe to the channel so more people can find me, and please like the video and give a comment. I read all the comments now. I am deep in YouTube, man. I also started doing, if you don't know, YouTube Lives in July of 2023. I did them for the month and to see if I liked them, and I do. So I'm going to be coming back in September 2023. I'm not sure when you're listening to this, with some YouTube Lives. I don't know for how long. I'll see. As long as I enjoy them, as long as I feel like they're helpful and people are getting something, I'm going to be doing them. And what they are is an Ask Dr. Abby. So people write in questions, or you can ask questions live if you come listen live, and I'm answering questions live. Isn't that fun? I know. Right now, they're on Wednesdays at 12:30. That's 12:30 Pacific time on Wednesdays. And again, I'll be starting that again September, I guess that's the 7th, that Wednesday. I don't keep my phone near me, so that'll be listed, but I'm looking real quick because I am near my phone. Let's see. I don't know why it's taking me so long to look at a calendar. It is September 6th. Sorry, I was wrong. September 6th of 2023. Okay, let's get back to the reasons why. Another reason I see is comparisons, just comparisons in general, but I think social media has made that much worse. You know, we are in a very interconnected world with constant comparisons to other people, right? Particularly on social media, that can clearly erode your self-esteem. And I find a lot of people feel inadequate when they compare their lives to, you know, these perfect, curated images presented, right, by other people. And it can really lead you to seek validation and to feel valued and accepted. So that can be another reason. And again, you can have you can have more than one of these reasons why you're on this validation precipitation continuum. Number 4 would be, to me, a lack of positive role models growing up. Maybe you grew up without any positive role models, or role models for healthy relationships. So that can clearly, again, I keep saying clearly and obviously, sorry, that can lead to individuals, to people, doubting their self-worth. You can seek validation from others to fill the void left by the absence of having supportive people in your life. So, or supportive kind of figures that you're looking up to. And number 5 that I want to talk about is unrealistic standards and perfectionism. If you are setting excessively high standards for yourself and constantly striving for perfection, that can definitely result in feelings of failure and inadequacy. Hello, because no one can reach that. It's impossible. So seeking validation becomes a way to validate your efforts and your accomplishments, even though they may be amazing by objective standards, right? It really, and again, I did a whole thing on perfectionism and what to do about it, a whole episode previously, so I'll link to that in the show notes. It's important to note that these reasons, again, are interconnected and can reinforce each other. And that can create really a cycle that perpetuates low self-esteem and the need for external validation. And to address these issues, which are really deep-seated, it requires introspection, self-compassion. It might require therapy or some other support. This is a type of support, of course. To work through whatever past maybe traumas or challenges, or past patterns of negative thinking. And so you can develop a healthier sense of self-worth. So this is a good segue to my top 3 tips really for relationship balance and loving connection. How's that? Oh, I like how I said that. I hope I remember that. Okay. These are my top 3 tips, and I'm going to go through them, I'm not going to take too long because I've done episodes on all of these areas, and I would much rather you went deep there on each one. So, but I'm going to give you little tips on the way. I'm not just going to completely overview. I always give tips. All right. So again, dealing with affection flooding or love drizzling stemming from codependency and low self-esteem, again, we're looking a little different than the love bombing, requires this self-awareness, this commitment, a willingness to work on your growth. I guess I want to say that first. Okay. So let's get to, sorry, I'm like, how do I want to say this? So here's my top 3 tips for a healthier relationship dynamics. So tip number 1, you're not going to be shocked by this, and you shouldn't be shocked if you've listened to me for any amount of time. What am I going to say first? Because it's always the bottom line is that you have to develop. Tip number 1 is you have to develop your self-awareness. You got to do it. If you've been having some aha moments today, good for you. I'm proud. I always have aha moments myself when I put together these episodes. They always teach me more about myself. I'm always learning about myself. So if you're doing that today, you're increasing your self-awareness, but it can't stop here. If you're not self-aware and practicing mindfulness throughout your day, you're not going to catch yourself when you're attention flooding, and you're definitely not when you're, low-key love drizzling. You're not going to see it. So in addition to, again, the more in-depth tips I give in earlier episodes on how to, the 4 ways to have more self-awareness and why self-awareness is so important in your relationship, and I will link to all of them, or though you could also, again, search for self-awareness on my website, and you'll go right there. Here are some quick tips to get you started on your self-awareness, mindfulness journey, okay? And again, remember, those are 2 different things. Self-awareness and mindfulness are 2 different things. I am very self-aware that I'm controlling. I'm not always aware that I'm doing it, okay? I'm not always mindful, that I'm doing it. So I'm self-aware. I know this is a thing, it's not a blind spot that I'm controlling, but that I love to control. But if I'm not being mindful in a moment, I don't see it. I'm sort of on autopilot, and I don't notice that I'm being controlling until someone reminds me, or my brain taps me on the shoulder and goes, hey, you're being controlling. So here are 3 tips. 1, I think is a great one, is journaling. Keep a journal to explore your feelings, your behaviors, past experiences. And I did an entire episode on journaling, why you maybe should be journaling and how to do it, and my top tips. I also have some fabulous journals on the website. I do, that are really cool. And so you could order a journal, you could support me, and you could have a really cool journal to write in. I love my journals. I, of course, have nothing in front of me that's one of my journals. Maybe next time I'll hold one up so you can see them. But or get a notebook. It doesn't matter. Write on your computer. You don't have to buy one, but it's really a great way to look at your behaviors, your past experiences that might contribute to your low self-esteem and codependency. Journaling can really help you gain clarity, help you gain insights into your thought patterns. So I highly recommend it. Again, if you go to my journaling episode, I give some journaling prompts that you can start with. If you don't know where to start, it's always great to start with prompts. And I also give you some guidelines on what's healthy journaling and what's not. So, but that could be it's really such a great tool for increasing your self-awareness and your mindfulness. The second great tool that everyone would say is to actively seek feedback. Ask for feedback from, again, trusted friends or family about your relationship dynamics and your behavior. Again, should be trusted. It shouldn't be crazy Aunt Mary who has an opinion on everything, who you don't even like or trust. That, consider the source always. Could be a therapist that's reflecting back, what you're doing. But when you actively seek feedback, I know it can feel scary. I'm much better doing it at work than I am at home. I have to admit. I think our personal relationships are scarier to hear how we're maybe not measuring up, but it's really important there. And one of my favorite ways to do it is to ask, what's one thing you'd like to see me doing better, doing more of? As opposed to, what do I suck at? I don't even know if that helps so much. Well, I hate when you do this, and I don't like when you nag, and I don't like that, and I don't like this. Other than beating me down and making me feel crappy about myself, I'm not sure where that gets me. But if I ask someone, in our disagreement yesterday, how could I have done that better? What's one thing I could have said to you that, would have helped us move it forward? What's one thing I said that really blocked our communication? what's one thing you think I have a blind spot about when it comes to X, Y, or Z? These are all things you can say at work, in your partner, all those things. Do you see what I'm talking about here? Actively soliciting feedback is not going into the lion's den and having people beat up on you. That's not even feedback. That's just having people beat up on you. So do you see the difference? Okay. Because you can get really valuable perspective from and insights into, areas you may need to work on. So another tip, of course, is to get some kind of therapy or counseling, get professional help, specializing maybe in codependency. You could also, there's 12-step groups, Codependent Anonymous, you could try that. But a trained professional, and that's not true of Codependent Anonymous, but that's not trained professionals, but it's a great support. But a trained professional really can guide you through kind of a self-discovery and help you understand the root causes of your behavior. And, I definitely like there's tons of, programs online and things like that. Just make sure you consider the source. Always, always consider the source. You should, you don't want to have someone who's, going to do your shadow work who's been a therapist for a year. I don't think a therapist who has a year of experience is going to really understand the breadth and depth of that. I'm not saying, and I know some people out there listening might be therapists who have a year of experience and are doing shadow work. I'm saying that what I think is the truth. I think you really, when you're getting to more root causes, deeper stuff, having experience is better. If you were going to get surgery, would you want someone who was fresh out of school? Or would you want someone who's had a lot of experience? You want someone who's had a lot of experience doing this kind of surgery. And of course the new surgeons have to get practice, right? They have to learn, but they often start with more general surgery, or they start obviously, for years working under someone else, or, whatever. Just be thoughtful. That's all. Be thoughtful about who is helping you always. What is their experience? What do they know or not know? I talk a lot about trying to be careful to stay in my lane. I do, some of this stuff on trauma. But I don't have a whole episode on trauma and what to do about, a whole podcast on how to do trauma or anything, because that's not my specialty. I say it, if you listen to any of the trauma episodes, I stay in my lane. I do a lot of research. But I try to stay in my lane, because trauma is a huge topic with a lot of pieces, and I don't want to, go somewhere that's not appropriate for me to go. So we should always know our limitations and, start small, all that. Anyway, know who's talking to you. If you look on my website and on my About Me page, I'm very, very transparent about my history, my work, my degrees. I talk a lot about having a PhD in organizational psychology. My PhD is not in, clinical psych. I have a master's in counseling psychology. I have 40 years of experience working with people. I have tons of other certificates and things around therapy. I have a real marriage of those two, but I'm very open about it. I don't try to hide it. If someone has a problem with that and doesn't think I have enough, whatever, then fine, don't listen. But there you go. Okay. And then my other tip would be download my mindfulness starter kit. It's free. Did I mention it's free? Make mindfulness a daily habit. Download the mindfulness starter kit. Download the meditation starter kit. They're free. They're there for a reason. They're there to help you. Do it. You will get on my love letter list if you do that. So that's a 2-for-1. You will get these fabulous love letters, and you'll be on, you'll get the starter kit. It would be a great place to start. All right. Tip number 2. So after, getting your self-awareness game down, is to practice self-compassion. And I, again, did an entire episode on self-compassion. And so I'd want you to go listen there, because I go deep. Kristen Neff is the queen of self-compassion. You can, and she's the queen because of her amazing, abundant, robust research. So I trust that woman implicitly. She's got the goods. So if you want to learn about self-compassion, you can start with my episode. You can go right to Kristen Neff. I quote her all over in the episode, because I quote the research, as I always do. When I'm pulling from something, I don't just make this stuff up off the top of my head. Today is a lot of my own, again, things I already know are research-based that I already use. As we get into episode 251, I really link to most of the research earlier. So when I link to the old episodes, you'll see all the research and the things that back it up, if you want to go hunting. But you got to be gentle with yourself. Come on, I love you. Love yourself, please, please. You have to be gentle with yourself. You've got to do it as you acknowledge and address this pattern you might have with doing this, emotional, right? This attention flooding, or these emotional drizzles. You have to recognize that seeking validation from others it's a common human experience, and it doesn't define your worth. So I want you to, you cultivate self-compassion by treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend facing a similar challenge or issue, right? I want you to think of yourself as I think of you, with love, with heart, with knowing how brave you are to even be listening right now, to be saying, I'm going to start working on these things. You're amazing, and I love you, and you got this. So don't beat up on yourself, please. I would never, ever, ever treat you that way, and I don't want you to treat yourself that way. I know my voice gets wavy because I start getting choked up, okay? All right, I do. I'm admitting it. So please. So again, I give some in-depth tips on this earlier episode on self-compassion, but because I love you, of course, I'm going to get you started on your self-compassion journey right now. So one of the things is to practice positive self-talk. You got to challenge these negative self-perceptions and replace those self-critical thoughts with kind and affirming statements. And again, I've done, how to get episodes on, your critical brain and your judging in your head and all that. They'll all be linked. But, you have to treat yourself, again, as you would treat a supportive friend. So I do have, which I think would be really helpful, on YouTube, I have a meditation on, or visualization, I should say, on stopping negative thinking. So again, I'll link to it, or you can just search on YouTube, Abby Medcalf, stop negative thinking, meditation, or visualization. I think it says visualization. And that would be great to listen to every day. I think it's 7 minutes or 8 minutes. Listen to that every day for a week. If you want to start with something like that, that would be great. Start every day with positive momentum. Do your best and stay in charge of your thoughts. Throughout the day, I talk a lot about, the best way to start your day. I did an entire episode on that and how important it is to not wait for a negative thought to occur and then try to combat it, but to try to stay in a more positive frame throughout the day with your mindfulness and your self-awareness, but also with these practices that I've outlined. I have a step-by-step guide to starting your day with positive momentum. It's right there. So, but to make that a priority is what I'm saying right now. And then, of course, one of the best things is to practice a loving kindness meditation consistently. I would say try to do it one day for a week. There's a ton of research showing that these self-compassion meditations are loving kindness, we call them loving kindness meditations, are super helpful for this. Sheryl Salzberg is probably the most famous person in this realm. I have one on YouTube for free. You don't even have to get the love letter. You don't have to sign up or put in your email. It's for free. You can put in loving kindness meditation, Abby Medcalf. It's there. It'll be linked to the show notes page. All of these are ways to get started on your self-compassion journey. Okay. And tip number 3 is you got to build your confidence and self-esteem. You have to work on building a positive, a healthy sense of self-worth, as well as your self-confidence. And again, I have a much earlier episode on building self-confidence and self-esteem. It's a combined one. But once again, here are some tips to get you started on that journey, so to speak. Okay. One is to celebrate accomplishments. Acknowledge and celebrate even the smallest achievements, and try to give yourself credit for your efforts. We know, again, from the research that celebrating progress can boost your self-esteem. And I suck at this. This is one of my harder things. And so one of the tips I give is that at the end of a day, if you are to say, what are two things you did well and one thing you wish you had done better? Because of course, those of us, who battle with our self-esteem, need to also say how we screwed up. God forbid we don't mention it. So that's okay. But two things that you did well. And these can include like, oh, I said I was going to meditate today and I did. Even if you only did 2 minutes instead of 5. If you have trouble with your hygiene, hey, I showered today and I brushed my teeth. Great. You get to put things in the win column. It doesn't have to be, oh, I was given the Nobel Prize today, so that's the only thing that fucking counts. No, other things, little wins count. The problem is that we often, our self-esteem is so low. It's like something really huge has to be the thing, otherwise it doesn't hit. But that's part of the problem. So to build up your self-esteem, you have to start realizing that you do a lot of things, and you have to start giving yourself credit for them. You don't have to announce it to the world. You don't have to send out a newsletter saying, oh, I tied my shoes today. I'm not talking about that kind of bullshit. I'm talking about getting real with yourself and giving yourself some props for the things you do. All right. Another thing I think is really important for improving your self-esteem and your confidence is to surround yourself with positive people. You got to spend time with people who uplift and support you. And you need to avoid spending times in relationships that drain your energy or make you feel unworthy. And I know a lot of times it's the most important people in our lives that make us have us feel drained or feel unworthy. I get it, but you have to figure out a way to shift that balance, that's not the majority of what you're hearing or around, and nor is it the most important thing you're listening to. Yeah, I know, but this is the work. And then a third tip I would give really is to practice self-care. I did a whole episode on self-care also, but really taking care of your physical and emotional well-being is a priority if you want to raise your self-esteem and your feelings of self-worth. You have to engage in activities that bring you joy, bring you relaxation, a sense of accomplishment. You got to do it. You got to do it. I love you. Do it. Wouldn't it be great if an entire therapy session was me saying, I love you, just do it. Just shut up and do it. You're like, no, Abby, that wouldn't be great. But that's what I'm saying to you. I don't know what else, you have to do it. You can't, I want you to listen. I'm glad you're here. I love you. I'm so happy you're here with me. But if you're not doing the things, I'm not really helping you that much. So somewhere, I'm not saying do everything I just mentioned, but pick one. I get that there's 3 areas to work on. Start with one area and then start with one thing. Start with journaling. Go listen to the journaling episode and do the journaling. Start there. You have to start somewhere. And if you try to do all of it, of course you won't and you can't. Who could? I give you lots of options because I don't know which one will appeal the most to you. Maybe what appeals the most to you is, you know what? I'm going to listen to the loving kindness meditation every day for a week. I'm going to do that. Got it. Done. That is the least point of entry. I don't have to, go listen to another episode and get journaling prompts and buy a notebook from Abby's website. I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to listen. I can go on YouTube right now. Or maybe I'm already on YouTube listening to Abby, watching her in all my glory. And right? It's like, anyway, whatever works, just pick one thing and you can add more later. And I really want you to remember that, change takes a bit of time and effort. It's okay to progress at your own pace. Don't compare yourself to others. Again, celebrate those small victories. Be patient with yourself because you're working towards building healthier, more fulfilling relationships based on that mutual respect and genuine affection. And that is what it's all about. You can do this. I have total faith in you. I've seen you do it. I get the emails from you, which I love, by the way, abby@abbymedcalf.com. I love them. I love when I hear how you're doing. I love when you tell me when something's helped or what really, really got you to the next, level, what you would like to see more of on the podcast, all those things. I love getting them. And as you know, if you've written to me, I do write back. Now, do not write in with some long question. Number one, because I don't have time. There's There's a lot of you, okay? There's a lot of people who listen. I don't have time to read an email that's going to take me 5-10 minutes to read. I don't. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get to the other 100 that are sitting there from other people. So please try to keep it as brief as possible. If you have a question for Ask Dr. Abby, understand that's what it's for, and I might or might not answer it on Ask Dr. Abby. So don't ever write in with like, please help me with my life, and then dump your life on me and expect, like, it's not ethical for me to do. And it's not appropriate for you to even want. You need to go to therapy. If it's that big, you got to go to therapy. Go get yourself to an actual therapist or some support, or go to church or mosque or temple and get, that kind of, if you feel like you can't afford regular therapy or whatever, or you can't access it where you are. You need to figure out a more appropriate way to get help than just sort of, me. It can't work that way, and it can't be immediate because that's not what I can do. So please write in. I do love hearing from you, but please be aware that, you're one of many people, and, I have to manage all that in addition to the rest of my life and my clients and all the things. So there you go. And if you are listening on Spotify, please rate. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please, give some stars, hopefully 5. Please leave a review. Leaving a review is such a great, great way to help me. If you really want to help, subscribe on YouTube, even if you don't watch me there. And, or go over to, even if you watch me on YouTube, go over to Apple and leave a review, and, follow. All those things truly, truly help the podcast get seen and heard, help us expand our growth. We have, well over 1 million downloads now. We're in 180 countries now. I mean, we're changing the world one relationship at a time. You can help forward this to someone who would benefit. I want you to be part of the army of people helping to change the world, and that's a way you can do it. And you can, forward something you think would be helpful to someone. Buy my book for someone you think it would help, whatever. There's free ways to support me. There's paid ways to support me, whatever you can do. But also for you to feel like you're not just receiving, but that you're giving. You're expanding out into the world. You're powerful. You have love to give, and you have things you can help others with. That is how we all get to that place where we really start to have world peace. So help me get there. It is my mission. I love it. I love that we're starting season 6. I'm really excited for what we might do next. I don't even know what the season's going to be yet. I haven't made all the plans. I love you. Thank you for being here with me. If no one else tells you this week, you are amazing and brave and incredible. And I feel truly honored and humble to spend this time with you. And I'm going to get through a closing without crying. So I love you. Have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you real soon.